There.
Probably best that way.
Yeah, it's a Zoom meeting, so that's pretty much. We know he's wearing a suit coat.
I'm not wearing a dress.
We're live.
Okay, let's call this meeting to order. 6:30, right on the dot. Roll call shows that all of our counselors are here. We've got the usual set of characters, and we will be having a lot of visitors. We'll introduce them as they come up on the agenda. Next thing we have is open forum. Does anybody have any messages that they have received to be shared in the open forum?
I do if nobody else wants to go first.
You can go first.
I received a call yesterday, and it's one of the things that I think we're going to need to get on an agenda and do very soon is the issue of what was formerly the dog pound and what is happening with animals or not happening and going into summer season and some of the problems with that. I found out, I didn't know that the dog pound had been closed, and any of them are going up to the sheriff's offices at this time. Also, that I know that last time we talked about it, which has been quite some time ago, there was potential of a building maybe in the EDA. My understanding is that is not in the works anymore. So I think with the fact that the dog pound isn't in use anymore, the sheriff's department isn't a good place for animals because nobody other than deputies can go in to take care of them. They were shorthanded last year. My understanding is right now many of our state troopers and DNR folks are down in the cities. They're low on manpower as well, that we need to address this. I kind of felt like we were in a critical situation previously when we were talking about it and we didn't move forward. And I think now we're kind of really at a critical situation. So just had received a call and they asked that we bring it up, talk about it, and if we can get it on an agenda here and move forward with something and get that figured out.
Yeah, Kelly, I received an email from them that pretty much said what you just said. If the council would like me to read that letter that they sent in, I certainly can. Otherwise, we can just note that there was the message that basically was what Kelly said. I don't know. What do you think?
You probably should, since if they contacted you and they contacted me, then the other counselors get to hear kind of what they have going on.
All right. Yeah.
We could just add it to the next agenda, Jay. If you send it to me, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of it. There's a lot of things to update you on with the goings-ons with that. So.
Yep.
We should probably add it to the next agenda.
Forward that to you, then, Mike, and then we'll make that note for next meeting. I did receive another message as well, or an email. Let me see if I can dig this one up. There was a conversational thread, so I'm not quite sure that there's a way that I can just read what it says. But it was Go Dog North Shore basically talking about a dog park proposal. That's also, I think that's not so much an open forum thing as a future agenda item as well. So just so that you know that's been sent out. So I think that's all that I have heard. Anything else? All right, hearing nothing else, we'll close the open forum, move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda has the typical 3 items: this meeting's agenda, the previous meeting minutes, and the approval of bills that have accumulated since the last meeting. Unless someone would like to pull something for discussion, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I would so move.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
I will second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, go to the roll call vote. Mine sets it up in alphabetical order. So, Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Kelly, your vote.
Aye.
Michael, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Consent agenda passes. Moving on to the first item on our agenda. This is for the Planning Commission. I will give a brief update, and then Michael, since you're the city representative on the Planning and Zoning Commission, you can fill in any blanks that I miss or any other relevant information, and then we can move on to how we want to proceed with that. So there's a variance requested for the property that is immediately to the east of the Best Western, right on the water. There's a 40-foot minimum setback from the vegetation line for Lake Superior, and that building is built as close as 7 feet from the vegetation line. So they're going to do some improvements on the house, and they need a variance in order to do so. Looks to me like the commission weighed this and had found 5 findings that supported a variance for this property, and it was approved by a 4-0 vote. So, Michael, do you have anything to add to that, to the discussion of this variance request?
I guess one thing I would point to, and Kelly pointed this out, is that they are removing the deck that's on the lake side. So, I mean, it doesn't make that many more feet difference between the edge of that cabin and or the fish house and the lake, but it's something like they are changing the orientation, the way you're going to come to it, that kind of thing. So that, I don't know, that certainly added, I think, to people's perception of what that's going to look like and how it might function and that kind of thing. But yeah, going through the findings, it really is just without looking at the environmental pieces of it, it really does fall in line with what we want to see happen in the downtown zone. It is a mix of, some living space, but also some business space there. And I think it would be nice to see something happening there now, and it definitely needs some work. So anyway, that would be my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this?
I'll add, Michael didn't talk about it, but yeah, the decking will come off, which I think will add about 3 feet. That's really the 7-foot proximity. Again, not huge numbers, but the one thing that was really nice was basically Michael, Ben Peters, myself had all gone and looked at the area, had looked at the property, made sure that we were comfortable. I had some questions and some misgivings on it. We kind of walked through things. There is a wall in front of about 2/3, I think. Mike actually found an aerial photo. So there's a retaining wall built along with large boulders, a tree line. We talked about North Shore Management Board, which I'm missing right now, and talking about erosion control on Lake Superior Lakeshore, which is a very large thing that they are working on right now. So we went through some of those steps, talked it through, and I felt really comfortable in the end that, 3 of the 4 of us were able to go see that property and take a look at what was going on. So I think that we did the due process of it and made a good effort to make sure that we were all comfortable with what was going on.
Very cool. So any other questions, comments, or support for resolution 2021-01? If we have no further questions or conversations, I would entertain a motion for resolution 2021-01.
I will make that motion.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second for it?
I will second.
Motion and a second. Anton, your vote. Or wait, any further discussion? I didn't think so. Anton, your vote?
Aye.
Kelly, your vote.
Aye.
Michael, your vote.
Aye.
Greg, your vote.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The motion carries, the resolution passes. Thank you for that. So the next one that we have, Patrick, do we know if Tyson is ready to jump on for the Lions Club?
Too many screens to navigate. Sorry. He should be. I'll send him a message.
Okay, I'll do it too. We'll bombard him. The way we're doing this today, just so everybody knows, we have a lot of people that are going to be coming in and out of the meeting, and so we've tried to have them watch the live stream so that they can be ready to jump in when our time when their time comes. They can just click right into the meeting. So as soon as he jumps in, we should be ready. I'll also send a message to see, the next one on our agenda after him is Legrand and Norde. So I can send a message to Jeremy to see if he's ready to go right now too. And I know that Tyson said that he had another meeting this evening as well, so he might need to be bumped back. So if Jeremy's ready, I think we'll probably bump him up, and then we can try and stay on track a little bit here. So my apologies for the downtime.
Say, while you're waiting, why don't you skip ahead to item I?
Okay. All right, item I. Let's take a look down at what that is. Passion Pit Committee City Rep. All right, so
Heights? Oh, yeah.
yeah. So the Passion Pit Committee has been created, and in the past, Kelly has been representing the city for that, and they asked for city representation, and so I guess, Kelly, if you're still interested in that, if that's okay with the council, I think that we could continue with that tack. What does everybody think about that? Or Kelly, if you have any words to say about that.
No, I'm fine with that. I'm interested in kind of seeing it through. Previously, it was a very small group of us that met with Tim Nelson talking about, we had 60 days to make a decision and kind of make a brief recommendation to the county board, whether we wanted to kind of continue with this, take a look at things, or what options we had before us. So from that comes this larger group now that will really dig into it. So I'm very happy to stay with it and follow it through, unless somebody else has really strong interest in it or wants to take part. So
I have no problem with that. Anyone else on the council have something about that? See lots of shaking heads. So I think I don't think we need to make a motion on that. That's just go for it, Kelly. Thanks for representing us. We know you'll do a good job. So great. So we'll check that off. Let's jump back to the Lions Club Fisherman's Picnic proposal. So we've got Tyson Smith here representing the Lions Club. They, in the packet, you'll find they have offered a couple of options that they're thinking of for Fisherman's Picnic, my understanding is that they're asking for input before a permit is requested. If I'm wrong, I'll just let Tyson set me right. But I think that we'll go from that point and we'll figure it out from there. So go ahead, Tyson. What do you got for us? Oh, you're muted.
You think I know how to do this by now. I'm here as a member of the Lions Club and not in my normal capacity as a lawyer. So I appreciate your introduction. The Lions are looking for some input from the city, and we're hoping we can obtain some from you either today or in a continuing discussion. There's a lot of folks that are interested in trying to make Fisherman's Picnic happen this year. Obviously, there are two very substantial unknowns. One is whether Wisconsin Street will still be a detour route for the Highway 61 construction project. And two, what will be the status of the COVID pandemic and what rules will be in place from the governor's office that we have to follow in the meantime. It's too difficult to tell right now what those things are going to be. There's a lot of optimism that because the construction season might get started early, that Wisconsin Street may be open. And there's also a lot of optimism that vaccination rates are increasing and improving. And by August, we may have a different set of rules than we do now. So certainly our club needs to prepare a permit and or application and a plan. One of the things we need is a COVID preparedness plan. As the rules sit today, I'm comfortable telling you it will be impossible for us to do Fisherman's Picnic and also comply with the governor's orders. And so what essentially I'm asking for is feedback about how the city feels about something of a contingent permit application. I say contingent meaning that we ask for a permit to close Wisconsin Street, but two things need to happen before that happens. Number one being, obviously, the construction needs to be done by first weekend in August so Wisconsin Street can be open and then closed for Lions Club for the picnic. And then number two, that we submit a COVID preparedness plan that meets the criteria from Governor Walz's office in place in August, which we're hoping will be different now, different then than they are now. Obviously, the reason we're asking about this today is we can plan Fish Pick today and pull it off. If the rules don't change, we can cancel it. We can't plan it in late July when new rules come, if they do, and expect to be able to pull it off in August. So once again, what I and the rest of the club are hoping for from the council is some indication of how you would view a weird thing like a permit with conditions that doesn't issue until the conditions are met, but still we understand that we can go through the work of planning to create something that looks as close to Fish Pick as we can get, given what the restrictions are.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, it's a bit unconventional, and I definitely acknowledge the hardships for trying to plan an event in uncertain times like this, especially with the construction. Allegorically, I can definitely share that I have significant concerns about the completion date of the Highway 61 project that would free up Wisconsin Street from being a detour. That was one of the things that we requested specifically and repeatedly with MnDOT, was that we would have the construction done on that section to free up Wisconsin Street by August, by the first week of August, and they have repeatedly said that that's what the schedule is, and they're even more optimistic that can happen with the early start that they're anticipating taking. However, as we can tell from the experience we've had with the Broadway intersection, it doesn't take much for things to get put back several weeks. And we know that the level of work that we're taking on this year is going to be pretty sophisticated. So I definitely have some concerns about that. I don't know if the rest of the council has any thoughts on either a contingent permit or thoughts on the different proposals that were given. I do think that it no matter what, fish pick is probably going to have to look different than it has looked in the past for this year. But that's really up to the Lions Club. We can see what we can do to support that. So, any other thoughts? Go ahead, Anton.
I guess I'd just say that, I mean, I think we could be in this. I mean, this isn't a new thing that's happened. I mean, as far as the idea of fish pick, the idea of doing it during hopefully the tail end of a pandemic and during a construction project is, something we're gonna have to adapt to. But I think knowing what entailed in what the ideal would be, right? If we have no restrictions, right? The restrictions are much looser than it would be hard for us, I think, to ask you to do like Jeremy did, who's going to come on next, about what his COVID plan is for being able to hold the bike race, right? That's a lot of work for you guys to do. It's a whole different event, and it's 4 months later, right? So it doesn't make any sense for you guys to put that effort forward. I would say that if we can monitor construction, we can monitor what the governor's advice is, and restrictions or lack thereof. My guess is you guys developing the Lions Club developing a COVID plan, even if it is in July, it's not, well, let's hope, right? It's not more restrictive than what is happening right now. Like, right, it would be an easier thing to do. I mean, we could call a special meeting to get your permit approved if it came down to it. But I think most people want to see fish pick return and appreciate the effort that the Lions Club does. And I think, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but my take is on it that we can just try and work with you with the understanding that we want to have this happen, and we know that we just have to figure out what the capacity of it is, literally and figuratively. So,
any other thoughts from counselors? Go ahead, Kelly.
I think what Anton said is, I'm in full support of that. I think it was a great statement and comment, Anton. I believe the same thing, like Tyson said, it's much easier for us to kind of contingently plan right now as to what it's going to look like and try to work with it than in mid-July scrambling to try to put something together. It's much easier to call it off than to try to put everything together at the last minute. If no other function were to take place this year, I would hope that Fisherman's Picnic would be the one that could. With 90 plus years long-standing in this community, while many events draw people, whether it's bike races, art festivals, music festivals, I mean, we have a lot of them. This is the one that I would throw my hat behind 100%, as long as the stars will align for it, so to speak. So whatever we can do to help you guys, or from my perspective, I say, yes, let's move forward. Let's plan for it. And if on July 4th, July 15th, August 30th, or August 1st, we're calling it off, then that's something else. But I am in support of trying to do whatever we can to make this happen. People are very aware of the picnic, and it's a big draw time. So the Lions put a lot of work into it. And Tyson, I'm glad to see you there with them. And I thank you for your service, because most of those guys are not in your age group. So we need to find people that will help carry on the tradition.
you showed up and got put in charge, didn't you, Tyson?
The problem is I didn't show up and I got voted in to be here today. So there you have it.
Well, we're glad you're here. So I mean, I've organized some of, or helped organize some of these events in the past, and I know that, you know, having contingent plans can be kind of iffy, because there are vendors and there are other items and you know, complexities of those events that, you know, they need certain commitments by certain dates and things like that. I don't know what those are. I think that you guys on the Lions Club are the ones who know what those things are. And that would, I mean, that doesn't really, I guess we don't really need that for the council to make a decision on this, but it would be helpful to know what those dates are so that we can have an idea of when we're talking about, you know, contingency shifts taking place. So I think yeah, those are my concerns, is that there are going to be these deadlines that that are going to have to be made to know whether or not vendors are coming, to know whether or not streets will be open. If you want to confirm with vendors, then you have to find spaces for them in all kinds of different scenarios. Yeah, it would, if that's what the Lions Club is going to move forward with, like you gave us the two proposals for different usages of streets. It would be great to be kept in the loop on that, so we don't have to go from 0 to 60 with you on what the contingency shifts are. That's one of my concerns. You know, the more that we can be brought along on the ride is going to help with getting the permits done in a timely manner, that kind of a situation.
Tyson, can I ask a question? Jay, if you're good for a minute.
That's
Can I ask you a question, Tyson? So if you look at, I mean, if conditions, if the restrictions on, like the restrictions from the governor are in place as they are right now, I'm assuming that Fisherman, you guys wouldn't do it, right?
Impossible to comply.
Right.
We cannot do it. The rules will have to change.
Right. Okay. So, I guess it's hard. I mean, so our second meeting in July is the 14th. No, wait, it's not till after that.
Mm-hmm.
Our first meeting in July is the 14th.
Correct.
So, can we, I mean, if you guys want to plan, I mean, I don't know. I think that stuff, some of that's out of our hands. I mean, I would say that if we make sure that you guys are on the agenda, we should know pretty good if it's looking like, you know, the highway is going to be open and the detour is no longer running down Wisconsin, right? I don't know how to direct you at all as far as, you know, how to write a COVID plan when nobody would know how to do that for out in the future, right? But you know, I mean, I think that, yeah, you know, whatever. I think we should, like, maybe, you know, having it that kind of as our deadline. You know, you can go out there and try and get vendors and, you know, I mean, I'm sure they're running on the same situation, folks that go to different events and fairs and stuff like that. I mean, you know, they probably wouldn't be surprised. So, but having a 3-week heads up to when we make the call, right, seems better than, for when the event happens, is better than a week before. So,
well, and I'm recalling from last year, you know, there was uncertainty about whether it was going to happen at all, and that call to say we can't do this was made, I think, probably like a month beforehand. It was not a long period of time beforehand, but even the year before that, I recall that there was, you know, the permit was issued for that one not very long before the event actually happened. So I would agree with you, Anton. I also think that knowing before the July meetings would probably be a really good thing, not just for us, but also for the Lions Club to know what the plan is and to be able to advertise and make sure that it's actually scheduled and planned out properly.
That's my point, though, is we don't have any control over that. Like, we know historically what Fisherman's Picnic is. We know what the ramifications of street closures are, like what, you know, the streets department needs to do as far as signage and road blockage and, you know, garbage cleanup, trash cans. Like, we know historically what the ask is of the city. And I don't think any of us here would say, yeah, this year we don't want to do it, right? If you guys can put the legwork in when you have the answers to get it, right, to do it safely, right, which again, that's above our pay grade, or our decision-making power. I would, I guess I'm speaking for me, I'd say like, great, like you tell us like we're doing it. We got the answers on that. We can do it. This is what we have to put in place. We're working on it, but we can at least get the permit issued and just ask to see like, okay, this is how you guys are going to handle it. And I mean, if you need to bounce stuff off us, great, but I don't know what it would be, right? It's not us. Like if we don't care, I mean, we can adjust if we close down all of Wisconsin or we close down portions, right? I mean, that's pretty flexible. And I don't think that any business that has had those closures in the past would all of a sudden be like, whoa, where we're going to get negative feedback about it. I think people want to have it happen, and it comes down to how the restrictions ease in order to make it happen, and the legwork for you guys to just plan like it's going to happen. And we'll be there to support you when you come up to us with a plan. And it could be 3 weeks before, it could be a week before. Unless I'm over speaking, I don't think that, Mike could probably answer this better, but as far as what city staff has to do, what our increase is, I don't know how quickly we can turn that on or off, but it seems manageable. Again, this isn't the first time, third time, it's the 94th time or something. So I think we can figure it out.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Anton. Like, I'm not going to say that Fish Pick can't happen or that the city won't work with the Lions Club to make it happen. So, yeah.
These are exactly the comments that we needed one way or the other. This will be very helpful for planning. Obviously, the way that this will happen, if it does, is if we can put together a COVID protection plan that satisfies the state requirements. And we hope to work with the county Department of Public Health and Human Services or anyone else that has experience in the industry that can help us put that together. And once again, understanding that the rules will have to change between now and then. And if they don't, it's an easy answer. We know we can't do it. But
Gotcha.
We got our fingers crossed, hoping that the end of the tunnel is coming. And if it is, we want to be ready for it.
Very cool. Does anyone have any other questions for Tyson then? Or Tyson, do you have any further questions for us? I'm not seeing much. Well, Tyson, bring our feedback back to the Lions Club. We're here to support you, and we'll probably be hearing from you again sometime.
Hopefully, we'll have a very simple, straightforward, and easy to follow and implement plan. But that'll be I think that'll be a minute or two of legwork before that happens. Anyway, This has been very helpful, folks. I really appreciate your time and your thoughts and your comments.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, Tyson.
Thanks for you guys' hard work, Tyson.
Yep. Thanks, Tyson.
All right, we're going to move right along then. So the next item on the agenda. Wow, that's a great picture. That's an old picture of Tyson on his screen there. Anyway, we're going to move on to the Grand du Nord street closure. This is we have Jeremy Kershaw here of Heck of the North Productions, which is the organization that that does the Grand du Nord. This is what, year 5, Jeremy, of this event?
I think it's our 6. We started 2016, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So this is our 6th year of running it and our 5th event, obviously. So again, thank you for letting me have some time and actually notifying me of the meeting. Life's been nutty here, so I'm glad I could make it. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Do you want to just jump in, or do you want me to do a little bit of a primer for what we're here to talk about for today?
Go ahead and give a minute of what you're thinking, and then I'll try to keep things as concise as possible where we're at.
Okay, cool. Hopefully I won't make things more complicated than they need to be.
Okay.
So the request that's before the council right now is for the use of County Road 7 coming into town. There's a certain part of that we have to give some clearance for. Otherwise, it's the highway department. And then the use of 3rd Avenue West, which is basically the finishing chute for the race. Now, in the past, we've had a lot of conversation and questions about that 3rd Avenue West section because it's all downhill and because it goes through neighborhoods. And Jeremy has come up with some ideas for how to mitigate those concerns, as well as having volunteers at the major crossings to make sure that there is some control there. My understanding, Jeremy, is that you've had conversations with people from MnDOT and people from the county, a lot of conversations to make sure that the usage of those roads will be okay in the context of the construction. And your packet that's in our packet has a lot of COVID preparedness and COVID response plans and concepts to make sure that the event itself is a safe event. So that's the introduction I can give you. Why don't you jump on there and see if there's anything I forgot, anything you want to add? Go for it.
Okay, that's correct. So I met with representatives from MnDOT and Cook County Highway Department about a week and a half ago in a meeting like this. And our main concern was the flow of riders and participants out of 5th Street or County Road 7 onto the courses as they head west out of town. All this obviously precipitating with the inability to use the Coast Guard parking lot due to the Highway 61 project. We have moved our start area to the YMCA, and I've been in communication with Emily Marshall up there, and we have a good agreement, I think, of how that's going to flow and the use of their parking lot in particular. We also understand that it is graduation day in the city, so we're going to be limited to just the Y for a start area. And also I've been working with Diane Booth at the community center to have some access to that parking lot too. It's correct. The historic flow of riders back into town has always been, even if I dealt with no one else other than my own brain in race development and race design and course design, coming down 3rd Avenue is not my favorite. I love the optics and the view of it where it finishes. I love bringing people right into downtown, almost into downtown, not into Wisconsin, but right down by the water. I think people leave Grand Marais with a really good image in their head. So the optics look good for me and for, I think, the city. Gravity is not my favorite thing, particularly for the fast people. So as we think about this, as we thought about how to do it this year, because of COVID, we have brought in chip timing, which is every racer will have a timer, so to speak, or a detection device on their bib. And that will allow us to do wave starts, which will be the first year also for this, so that we can space people out. I thought, this all gets back to 3rd Avenue, but I thought about finishing the event out of town, and nothing seemed to really make sense. So I decided to ask to still bring people down 3rd Avenue West. And I think where we're at with the safest bet is we're going to utilize the stop team as always up on 5th. Whatever stop team people we have extra, we're going to route down 3rd Avenue. And then I think we're going to stage at least one volunteer at every intersection coming down the hill. And historically, the city has barricaded those intersections on the streets as they cross the avenue, with the idea that traffic can still flow, but very cautiously because there's barricades set up there, but people can get around. I'd like to introduce people at every intersection so that, again, my volunteers will not be stopping traffic, but they'll be with flags and with vests, basically as a heads up for motorists and also riders that are coming down the hill. The reality with all of my events, there's about a 0.1% that gives me the most grief, and those are the fast people looking to be the first ones across the line. Almost everyone else, the vast majority of riders are coming in very well controlled, you know, at a sane speed. So, but that doesn't, you know, there's always 1 in 1,000, and that's still too many, you know, for potential accidents. And I know that we've had some close calls on 3rd Avenue. I've been lucky with safe events in 14 years of doing this. I want to continue that streak, and with the planning to try to keep things as safe as possible within the realm of it being an active sport. You know, there's going to be always a risk for harm, but we're going to do what we can. So our plan to mitigate that is to have the stop team on 5th and 5th, and also to have the barricades on the intersections, and also have people on every intersection. There will be a heads up to notify not only motorists, but also riders coming down to like slow it down, or to even stop if there is a vehicle, you know, that is in harm's way, so to speak, for the rider. I'm working with the Proms and Voyager Brewing to, again, kind of have that finish area near their business. We are separate from them, but obviously there's a flow of people in that area. And we're also dealing with the flow, you know, we're not having any spectators this year. People will be, you know, all the other protocol that we have in place. But again, that gets into protocol. This is more about that use of 3rd Avenue. So that's what I have so far right now. We are expecting 600 riders, which is more than we've ever had. We filled up faster than ever. People are chomping at the bit to get outside, to ride their bikes, to come up to Grand Marais. And it's a great thing. It's also this is our time at the table to figure out what planning looks like post-COVID, and it's a lot. But I think we've got a good handle on it, and we're just setting up volunteer information this week. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. Any questions or comments for Jeremy from the council?
So, Jeremy, this is Kelly. I actually live on 3rd Avenue West, but we tend to leave town on Memorial Weekend. Where do the riders come down then in order to connect to 3rd Avenue West? I'm a little worried, and I know you've worked it out, but 600 riders and graduation weekend around here, where graduation will be somewhat open this year, I believe there will be some people attending. Just kind of wondering what that pathway is to get to 3rd.
All of our riders, it's a good question. Thanks, Kelly. And I appreciate any concerns coming up. All of our riders will be flowing eastward into Grand Marais via County Road 7, and then they'll make that right-hand turn downhill onto 3rd Avenue West. Because of the staggered starts, and then we run 3 distances: a marathon distance of 26 miles, a 54-miler, and then a 110-mile event. We will have a trickle of riders coming in from 11:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the evening. And so it won't be this lump of 600 riders, and you know that, Kelly, coming down at one time. It will be, there'll be, for better, for worse, it's spread out throughout that day between, again, roughly 11 o'clock in the morning to roughly about 5, with our last riders coming in at around 6 probably. The 5th and 5th intersection was where I'm really working with MnDOT to get people headed westbound. Everyone leaves County Road 7 as well, and we know that that's a truck route, and that's part of the designated route for the highway project. Coming back in, again, it's really spread out, and so I'm hoping that you know, people will see cyclists, but they're not going to see this mass of 100 cyclists coming in at one time, coming down that street. And again, that's good and bad because it stretches it out. You know, when we used to leave Grand Marais, we could get everyone across Highway 61 in about 5 minutes, compared to like what Peter does with the Lutsen 99er. And, you know, it's like, wow, that seems pretty easy. But now with the wave starts, it's like, well, okay, we're thinned out, but we're also taking longer too. So that's the optics on that.
My thought is, and I don't know if the city can help with signage. I don't know what the county highway department will do. If graduation takes place at the high school, I think all the kids drive themselves, right? You have all the staff that attends that drive themselves, and then families. You're filling the school parking lot, and usually
No.
No,
we're not
I
having-
mean, not your bikers, but I mean the people attending
Oh, yes.
graduation are filling those lots. The kids are. Everyone's parked along County Road 7 into sometimes the Catholic Church parking lot. So I'm just thinking somehow, whether it's us county jointly, I just think the signage is going to have to be really out there on that day for people to be aware of.
We will have approximately, I've laid it out with probably 5 to 6 event in progress highway big orange triangle signs that we're bringing up from ESCO, which is normally something we always do. So those will be on County Road 7, as well as on 5th Avenue, north and south of that intersection, as people come down from the Gunflint Trail and head north uphill. The first sign will be near the school for westbound motorists, notifying them. I'm not sure exactly when graduation takes place. I've been in communication. We had originally asked for the use of the parking lots at the school, and the principal notified us of graduation, of course. We backed off of that fairly quickly, and we will not even have any parking in the Y. It will just be a staging area in the morning for us until about 10:30, and then we'll be out of there. I'm not sure when graduation ramps up that day or the ceremonies begin that day.
Ceremonies usually, unless they change it, ceremonies have always been at 3 p.m.
Okay.
They could change it, but that's typical of what they do, what the school has always done.
I'd say, for better for worse, we'll have probably 50 to 60% of our cyclists across the finish line by 3 p.m. The remainders will be the 110 milers coming in. Like I said, somewhere between 1 o'clock and about 4 will be the lump of the last riders. So with the highway signs in place, I would hope that we would be out of, so to speak, the way of people using the school area, because we'll be out of there by about 10:30. At least for the start area. We're pretty lean and mean, and we have 2 feather flags and some timing equipment, and that will be it as far as getting stuff out of there, other than some maybe flagging strings.
Jeremy, just one thought, and I don't know if it would be any safer, and I really guess I'm thinking about the riders, because cars tend to do better than a bicyclist, but would they be able to stop with the quit spot? They have to come down 5th, because I was thinking of the county highway department parking area. It's so huge above law enforcement there, but yeah, you're actually finishing at the bottom of 3rd Avenue West, aren't you?
Again, that's the plan, and I will look at a map 1,000 times and try to figure out whether it's routing or something else. And every now and then I'm like, why didn't we think of this? And that actually happened with one of the courses. As I look at the layout of the Grand Marais of town, I've thought about coming down 8th Avenue, but then you do the squiggle through the other blocks, and then there's too many right-hand corners, left-hand turns or 90-degree turns, and then it adds intersections in a way that I don't think make it any safer. In fact, probably make it less safe. I keep coming back to that 3rd Avenue as the safest way to get down to that area, with the idea that that's where we'd like to finish. For reference, I did consider finishing the event all the way up on Bolly Creek Road with timers, but the reality is that the riders have to get back to their cars or wherever they're parked in town. And to me, still on 7th with the broad shoulders on County Road 7, and the straight shot, it still seems to make the most sense doing it that way. So that's where I'm at with my design. Again, with the knowledge that if I could shut down a road, I would, or could. I would ask that, but I don't think that's a possibility this year. And I respect that. But I think with what we have in place, I think that will help. I think it would really help having people on those intersections this year. which would be new for us. And I sometimes I'm like, I can't believe we haven't done that before, but that's where I think we can make a big improvement this year.
Yeah, I can tell you thought it out. I'm just thinking graduation weekend throws a whole wrench into it, along with an increased number of riders. But
how many people that are associated with graduating this year, as far as like actual student numbers? Do you know?
I don't know the student numbers. And I don't know what they will allow in, but I anticipate, because of, unless the restrictions really close in, I anticipate that we will have some sort of, I don't want to say open, I would say a limited availability for family members and things to come in, because I've already heard the Duluth schools are planning graduations and different things. So I don't think we'd be much different, but it might be that the only people that get to come in are mom and dad and siblings or something. I don't know. Our gymnasium isn't real big, so.
Are there 100 students graduating, or what's the?
We'd be lucky if we have 50.
Okay,
I don't even know if it's that.
I think it's around 50. I was just trying to look and see what it is, but I think
that's a big class for here.
Yeah, the 12th grade class, it looks like is in the 50s. Yep.
Okay. I'm since I had some communication going with the principal, it started off with the parking lot use. I'd be happy to reach out to her again to kind of see what their design is going to look like. There was talk of a parade, or just, I wasn't sure how much of it was going to be outside of the school versus in the school area,
Yeah, I don't know. They did a parade last year for the very first time because they did not have an open graduation. It was a way the community members could share and congratulate.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that sticks because people like it. But yeah, probably talking with Megan Myers again and staying in touch with her would be the best route, to ensure the safety of those participating and what works best for you. Like I said, I wouldn't have any other concerns. I just think that these things have to be, aware of for safety for all those who participate.
Sure. I respect that. Thank you.
Any other
And
thoughts?
I'll reach out to her too.
Any other thoughts from council members?
Yeah, I just got a question. If you have 600 riders, what are you looking at typically of number of vehicles that support that many riders? And if the starting is going to be at the YMCA, has anybody, like if you worked with the county or the city at designated parking places that these riders can leave their cars? Because once they leave the starting area, where are their vehicles at?
Yeah. So that has been obviously something we've been thinking about. Again, I've reached out to Diane. We'll have use at the community center. We're also looking at Creechville Road to a certain extent, depending on baseball use. We don't want to block any parking there, but I look at that avenue as a possibility. But again, any activity at the ball field has priority. Historically, we've used Coast Guard parking lot. The one advantage we have is that our riders are about to set out on an 8-hour day. So walking a couple blocks usually isn't that big of a deal for them. But the reality is that, we weren't sure exactly, does that mean 600 riders at maybe 500 vehicles? I don't know exactly a number of that. And where those are going to end up, whether or not they're going to be neighborhood parked. I want to make sure that I don't have riders parking on 3rd Avenue, which is, I've got to be careful with my cyclists and their driving, frankly, as they leave town. So I am also open to suggestion about where people can park, with the idea that it doesn't have to be a block from the start. It could be literally a Coast Guard parking lot, and then they could ride up to the start, so that's right. It doesn't have to be 50 feet away from something. It's more of where's going to be the most sane place to have people park. So
Well,
that's,
I'm kind of assuming that the finish line is going to be down by the bottom of third, right?
that's the going plan right now, correct?
The highway will probably be tore up there, I would think. They're starting May 15th, and I don't know where they're going first, but do you know that, Mike?
We'll learn more on Friday.
Okay.
As I understand,
And a lot of parking down there on the highway could possibly be gone. You know, it'd be nice to find areas where these people can park so that during the race, especially with graduation going on, we don't end up with people going to graduation and having no place to park. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, you know, trying to make space for everybody if we can, you know.
It's a Saturday, right? So you have the courthouse parking lot. You have their parking lot.
An empty lot across from the courthouse.
Across from there.
Right.
A good place might actually be, instead of parking up and down the avenues, going across on the streets where you're not blocking views. You know, there's a lot of parking there. I think of the Catholic Church, but a lot of times that gets used for graduation parking, which might be really appropriate to leave it for them.
Yeah.
The highway department has a very large lot there above law enforcement. Options.
I would suggest that probably most people that are coming up to ride aren't from town, and so that they probably have a hotel somewhere or they're staying in the campground. And if you are staying down at one of the hotels in downtown, you're not going to drive your car up 4 blocks to park, right? You're going to ride your bike up to the start line would be my guess. Right. I think the hotels would probably take a fair amount of, you know, wherever the people are staying, they'll just leave their cars there in the morning. And
that's a good point. I actually didn't even think about that too. We obviously have a fair number of people staying overnight for the weekend. We do have obviously some coming up just in the morning from Duluth. But I had a little question of who I'd reach out to, and I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate any more time here, but whether or not, Mike, if I could bring this to you or talk to Patrick about some ideas about we have good communication with our riders via the systems that I use. And so I'll be able to designate some good parking areas, and I just want to make sure I nail that down, you know.
Yeah, we'll get in touch with you, Jeremy. We'll get in touch with you and we can talk through some ideas and get some sites picked out.
Okay, thank you.
Very cool. Any other questions or comments for Jeremy? All right, seeing none, we have his application in here is for street and sidewalk use, or largely street use from what he's identified. There's no further discussion. I would entertain a motion to approve that permit if someone feels so inclined to move it.
I would so move.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second for that? Oh, CJ just jumped in.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. And we'll go through and do our roll call vote on this. Any further discussion? Nope. Anton, your vote.
Aye.
Kelly, your vote.
Aye.
Michael, your vote.
Aye.
Craig, your vote.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thank you for the well thought out event and presentation, Jeremy. If you have any other questions, let us know. Otherwise, you and Mike can figure out the parking. Make sure that we give graduation plenty of space for their plans as well. So
very good. Thank you for your time, everyone. I appreciate it. And I always welcome feedback as well. So really looking forward to being back up. Thanks.
Yep. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, moving right along on the agenda. So we have a couple of guys on the call here. We've got Dan Sean, we've got CJ Fernandez. They are here to talk about the community connector. We just a refresher here. A few meetings ago, we had a discussion about the community connector and the utilities that would lie underneath where that project has been identified. CJ and Dan are going to chat with us about some of the alternate plans for or alternate concepts for that connector, and what their impacts would be on the area financially and on the utilities. So with that said, I'll let you guys take it away. We have had an opportunity to see the different descriptions of the alternatives, but it's always good if you walk us through them. So go ahead, guys.
Thanks a lot, everybody, for your time tonight. I'm going to provide a quick summary or an overview of what we've done since last time we met. And then Dan is going to go into an explanation on the study of what we've called the current concept, or the concept that had been vetted a couple of years ago now. And then we have some additional studies. And so there's really kind of two directives that we took moving forward. And one of those was just to figure out, with what we had on paper right now, what were going to be the utility impacts. We studied that. We found out some interesting things. We took a step back and we looked at, is there a way to create some changes in location or layout that has sort of minimal impact on the effect or what the goals were of the project, and try to avoid any disruption or immediate costs with utilities, and also not preclude them from being replaced in the future. So, I mentioned we had some interesting things that we've discovered, and I think I'll turn it over to Dan real quick. I'm going to share my screen, and then Dan can kind of take you into where we were with studying the existing conditions.
Can you all hear me? Good. I've had problems with my audio, but.
So this is the report that we've provided, and what I just scrolled through is essentially a summary of the work that we're going to speak to now. So I think with that, Dan, you can take it from here.
Okay, so we were asked to look at if the community connector were built in its current planned location, it's going to have some impact on some existing utilities and require relocation of those utilities. So we took a closer look at that, exactly what would be required, how the work would be sequenced, and what the costs involved in that relocation would be. Maybe if you flip to that exhibit map, CJ. So this is a little diagram to try to describe what we think would have to occur. The community connector is sort of outlined in the green shape there. And then you can see that on the right-hand side in blue or bluish is the water main, the existing water main is currently in the location underneath where that community connector would go. And then on the left side, there's also an existing storm line that would pass under the corner. So both of those utilities would be impacted and would need to be relocated to clear the area to construct that community connector. So the plan that we looked at was to first, with regard to the water, already in the highway construction project, the water line that runs down Highway 61 on this side runs along the front of that existing retaining wall there. And that's going to be abandoned and moved out toward the center line of the road a bit to get it away from the wall and replace the water main as part of the highway project. So this plan would pick that point and put a T there so that we could both make the connection to the existing water main and extend a new piece of water main to the west out around where the community connector would be built, and then down south to right up to the right-of-way line. And that work could occur this year with the highway project. It would have to stop at the right-of-way line because no work can occur outside the right-of-way line. So this year, just that small portion would be built and capped off, and in preparation for when the community connector is actually built. The storm line this year could stay in place. As part of the highway project, MnDOT will be constructing a new manhole up in the curb line and connecting that existing storm. So when it came time to build the community connector, what we would do is connect to that new manhole and route the storm around the community connector footprint area and set a new manhole and then discharge to the same location that the existing stormwater discharges to right there. So with those two moves, that would essentially clear the area for the community connector construction of the major utilities. Now there's a buried power line that passes through there as well, and there's probably a couple of options for that we understand that power line is owned by the city. So we'd have to discuss with them what their preference would be for relocating that, either relocating it around the community connector, or there's also an option to possibly sleeve that if it had to stay where it is, possibly sleeving it through the walls as we build the community connector. There's also a buried telephone line. You can see that runs east-west through that area. But that telephone line is also currently being rerouted with the highway project. So there's already a plan in place to relocate that power line. Communication line. So in subsequent or when the community connector is actually built, the capped water main would be connected to and then routed down to connect to the existing water main just south of the little bridge pathway there. And then that would allow the piece that's in conflict with the community connector to be abandoned at that point and removed. There's a couple of service lines there that would have to be reconnected at that point as well. So that's the scope of the work. We also put together a cost estimate for that work, and we divided separated the cost estimate into the amount of the cost associated with the work that would have to occur this year, and that's the items in yellow there. And the total of that work for 2021 would be about $31,000, and then the final connection of the water main and rerouting of the storm would add another $76,000 for a total with contingency of $129,000 for utility work to clear that area.
All right. So that's a lot of work.
Yes, it is. And to do this cost estimate, we utilized the current unit prices in the current highway project just to make sure that we were tracking with expected actual costs.
So I'm a little confused. Were these lines not identified? And I can't remember. Maybe Mike could help me. But were these things not identified before we determined that was the spot, the angle where the community connector would go, knowing that we were going to have these issues? Was that not determined beforehand until now when we asked for it to be looked at again?
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. I guess the quick answer is the vetting of the concept and the design work through the steering committee and sort of other subsequent meetings we had when that was reviewed was ahead of surveys and construction documents. And so that design kind of lived on as the project progressed. And so we had, essentially left it as is, and knowing that we'd have to come back to it at some point in time. And as the road project came on board and utilities were identified, we knew that there was going to be conflicts. So these essentially are the next steps of vetting that out.
Thanks, CJ. I was just trying to understand because I'm like, are we paying to have this looked at twice if it didn't get caught the first time? So that helped me.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just kind of a process thing of working through the concepts before the construction document phase took off. If there's any more questions about that, we can answer those, or I kind of finish off what we've studied here so far.
I think go for it.
Okay, so
Talk about alternatives.
The second phase of what we did since we spoke last was to figure out what we can do and see if there isn't a way to kind of get the best idea on the paper, so to speak, for everyone to take a look at. And so we looked at actually a bunch of ideas. Some of the first things were like, let's just get the connector out of the way. Let's move it out where we know we can avoid all the utilities. This was the location of the design, the footprint essentially of the connector as it was originally designed. We also looked at, is there a way to get this thing essentially cut in and sort of surgically built as another alternative. And so what happens pretty quickly with what would be alternate 2 is that to get down the amount of grade and to keep essentially the design space together, as well as maintain our 2-foot offsets from the trail, we start pushing immediately into the trail that is existing here. Moving it further this way, we start landing in really steep side slopes, which is a bad condition at the bottom of the stairs. The other things we were looking at is its role as a connector really becomes diminished. A lot of the foot traffic moving through the area is coming through this direction. And the idea of this space being a place where you can view over the harbor and the open space, park space below really becomes diminished because you're asking people to come here to a really kind of odd circulation path. And then the last thing that became apparent quick is once we got this moved over far enough where we have a little bit more manageable cross slopes, we have 2 campsites, that start to feel really kind of infringed on. This one especially being so kind of close, immediate, to the view or the that you'd have out from that kind of overlook location. So there was a few things there that really pointed us away from having a successful or sensible project. And so we took a hard look and studied in more depth, actually more depth both of these. We did look at grades. These are the alternate 1 and alternate 2. This is the existing storm sewer. This is the existing water line. And so we did make some slight adjustments to the design. A wing wall portion of this, how the arbor interacts with the walls, and then the width dimension were adjusted. It's about 2 foot narrower than it was before. And so it's a dimension that we feel is probably where we need to be as far as today goes. But it had promise. We looked at it in further depth. This just further expresses the distance relationships to storm sewer. At its closest point, we're about 6.5 feet away, and we range anywhere from about 9 feet to a little under 7 feet away from the water line. And then the trick in the whole mix is figuring out where in space these actually, or not in space, underground, at what heights they exist. And so these sections are depictions of this condition right here. This condition right here is this one. And then this condition here where the footing is located here and how it relates to the water lines. So the storm sewer is not flat underground, as you know. What we found out is that if we were to build the structure and have a footing, that we do have space where we can dig this, and with a 1-to-1 back slope, a couple feet, little bit of space to work and actually to get your footings in, that we've got a very workable solution. You could also employ some shoring here if there was real concerns about the storm sewer, but not a lot of worry in regards to the storm sewer. In regards to the lakefront corner of the footing located here and its relationship to the water line, the water line's a little bit more difficult to determine. We know it's in a range of elevation below surface, and this is where that range falls. And so it's kind of the highest scenario and lowest scenario. And what we found again is that we're able to excavate out the footing and not impact the water lines. The other thing that we had to look at is that the area of soil that takes on the loads of the overlook or the connector itself we're outside of that load distribution, so we're not putting pressure down on top of the water lines. And then the last section here is the upper part closer to the street, the other end of the footing, so to speak, or the northern end of the footing. And again, we have the same condition where we're able to dig this in and not impact the utility. And the good part about all of these is that the limiting factor really is the building of the connector, which is in turn kind of lower in some cases than the utility, which means when you come back to replace a storm sewer, your excavation is going to time out and essentially go back towards the foundation wall of the overlook. So that's a very doable replacement in the future. And same things here. We have, the return of the excavation is going to be above the bottom of the footing. So we're not undermining the integrity of the footings if this facility were to get replaced in its current location. And so at that point, we knew we had a workable solution. We did skinny up the overlook a little bit and change the orientation by about a 13-foot rotation. This was the original layout. And so we've taken a little close to 2 foot off of this dimension that's measured to the trail that's sloping down. And then we also narrowed up about 15 inches in this dimension. There's also some other layout changes that instigated. The way the arbor meets these walls and things changed up to make this work. One of the things we did do is we did narrow the stair a little bit to preserve the space up above so that it's essentially the same in these corners from this version to this version. Mike asked if we could then re-render those views to get a sense as to what they actually mean. And so these views are kind of the original concept to the new alternative, putting some priority on alternate number 1, which we feel has the greatest potential, both through design and still allowing utilities to be replaced in the future. So this was the concept as it sat before, and here's the fence line. This view is taken from the exact same location in space, the same camera location. And so you can see that this is being rotated, moved over, and then the layout just changed a bit. So we gain a little bit more space there at the edge. This was the original design, and this is the revised design. So the main differences here are the consolidation and the return of a wall on this side, and the integration of the columns and the walls, which you can see right here. It's a slightly different bench configuration. This view from below was the previous version, and then now you can see the difference in rotation, where it's looking much more north-south versus the skewed view it had before. And then this was in plan view, the previous design, to the shift forward and narrowing up of the overlook. So that's the last image that we have of the comparison between the two different, the current option, I would say alternate number 1, to help describe the changes that have been made. We feel that in large part the design is very much still intact, although the detailing and how it comes together had to change, and some features and different components of this design went away. But at the end of the day, I think the aesthetic impact is very minimal, and it allows a new solution to be pursued if the city chose to do that. I think from a cost standpoint, there is no immediate costs related to the water or storm sewer with this alternate number 1. The cost for bituminous replacement, which is here and here, was incidental to any scenario we were looking at. The power line and telecommunication line, which is being handled in the DOT project, are also incidental to either of the options. So there might be some escalation costs just due to general conditions and working in a tighter condition. with alternate 2 and preserving all the utilities in place, but the cost off trades or trade-offs are considerable. And so that's the summary of where we landed with the studies. If there's any questions, we can certainly answer them. I think moving forward here, we're looking for feedback from council as to if your feelings and if there's a preferred direction for either of the alternates, or to continue or to pursue replacing the utilities, and then also if there is a preferred option, if there's any directive to move this work forward. The last thing I would say is, if this alternate were to be determined as a preferred option, there is work going on in the DOT project now, some pavements that related to the old design that we would essentially change. And so there would be some kind of immediate action to get that rectified if utility replacement was not desired at this point in time, and resulting in selecting one of the alternates.
Also point out on page 58 of the packet, we have a letter from Tom Nelson, who's our water superintendent, water and wastewater superintendent, saying that he vetted the options, the alternative options, and views alternative 1 as the best fit. I don't know if any of the counselors have any other comments to add. My view on it is that we can still accomplish the goal that the community connection seeks to accomplish with alternative 1, and without incurring that expense of moving the utilities. So that's my thought. Craig, you're unmuted. Did you have something you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, I was just looking at the location of the storm sewer, the current location versus moving it. Where does that empty out? If you go back to some of those pictures in the photo, well, that empties out into that little creek bed there, right?
It does, yeah.
That's right.
Okay, where's that
before the bridge.
relationship? Can you give me a southern exposure of that community center if you keep scrolling the other way? We had pictures of it, but my concern is there a big footing that's going to be right on top of it?
Yeah, I think so if we look here, this is the outflow of the storm sewer. This is the beginning of the dry creek. This is the covered bridge. So our pinch point is right here.
Yep.
And that condition is depicted here. So this is the depth of our footing and the depth of the storm sewer.
Okay. So do you feel
There's a piece of trail that goes between the outfall of the culvert and the bottom of the stairway.
So you feel that absolutely needs to be moved, or too close to, I know we talked about moving the water the last meeting we had, but we didn't have anything about a storm sewer being moved. So I'm just kind of,
I believe
we're not planning on moving any of it.
Yeah.
What's that?
We're not going to move any of it.
In alternative 1, I think that shows
that stuff stays.
Yeah, that the moving alternative 1 kind of pops the space, or pops the connection in between those two utilities, so that we don't have to worry about impacting either one.
Yeah, and it may be too, just to clarify from the previous meeting, part of this study was just to figure out what the impact here really was to that storm sewer. And so with the way that the design was sitting, we were in conflict with it, and that's one of the findings that we had, was that this would need to be replaced. That's why we just started looking at some new alternatives, because it looked like there might be potential. And we just had to study some changes to the design, and then the depths of footings and the grades and the depths of all the utilities to figure out where the impacts were. So we have confidence that, and we had some good feedback from Tom as well, looking at this, that this is a pretty doable scenario.
Any other thoughts or questions from the council on this?
I like this idea much better, and I think that it's a really good cost savings, whether it's through the park funds or however it would be done, or through taxpayers. I like the alternative, and I appreciate CJ and Dan the time put in and looking at this. I think it's I think you're right. We don't lose any of the aesthetics, and I think it's a great alternative, if even really that much of an alternative per se.
Yeah, it seems to me a really elegant solution to the problem, and also having the feedback there from Tom, makes it feel like a really good alternative, as it were.
So I don't believe we need to make any decision tonight, but if we're pretty set on a certain alternative, we can tell these guys to get working on it, and starting to see what that looks like.
Do we need to make a motion, Jay, to change this, since there is work that would have to take place this year?
If the council is prepared to do that, we certainly can. I don't see a reason why we can't.
I would motion that we accept alternative 1 and move forward with that.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second for that?
I would second that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
When you say move forward, Kelly, that the last meeting when they were here, they had attached a proposal that included the full design cost of the work. And I think that's what move forward would mean, is that they would then go ahead and do the rest of the work that was included in their original proposal at your last meeting.
Well, I don't think I'm going to stop it from happening. It's in the budget. So yes, since there's work that has to be done this year to take part in this, and this is what was chosen and going to happen, then yes, that's moving forward.
I'll jump in with a comment as well. That this alternative also, I think is going to be a way more cost-effective option to move forward. We're going to be able to accomplish the goals that we seek to do. It's going to save us $129,000 to not have to move that stuff, and we're going to change the vantage, or like the viewpoint, a little bit, the angle a little bit. But we're going to kind of thread the needle with this thing, and it's going to work out. So I feel pretty good about the alternative. Yeah. Any other?
Yeah, I don't know that we're saying. I mean, we are saving $129,000 from not doing the utilities, but that was not in the budget to begin with.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is we're not going to spend $129,000. And yeah, I think CJ said it will shrink at about 2 feet, and so I mean there will be some cost savings, I would imagine, in some of that potentially. Mm-hmm. We know that materials right now in 2021 costs are out of this world. So I think that will help us a little bit in what we move forward with. So I'm comfortable with it.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Anton, your vote?
Aye.
Michael, your vote?
Aye.
Kelly, your vote? Sorry, Kelly.
I was already. Aye.
Craig, your vote?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you, CJ and Dan, for coming and presenting, for preparing this information. Please do be in touch, and this motion is carried.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
All right, so we're going to move right along. The Passion Pit Committee we already took care of, so that's great. So the last thing that we have on the agenda is the city administrator job analysis. And I believe, Chris, are you going to take care of that? I know it's not your name on the summary for the quote, but basically, in order to accomplish the work that we want to get done, Flaherty and Hood they're experts in this area. Got Brandon Fitzsimmons and Karina G. Patino. Say that will cost us about $2,500 to do. So I don't know if you want to jump in, if you have any information, Chris, or if we can just take it someplace else. Go ahead.
I don't have a lot of information. I won't be doing the work. My partner Brandon would be doing the work along with whatever other services you want. I mean, it ultimately comes down to, what are the services that you want to do here? I mean, Brandon put together a proposal of what that work could look like in terms of what you wanted to do, but you might decide that you may want to do less than that, or there may be other things that you might want to enhance related to that in terms of, maybe you just want to look at the job description and look at a performance eval process and not some of the other things. So, obviously, if you decide to move forward with it, you'd be working with Brandon about it. And I think the committee can contact Brandon and you can work with him, and obviously whatever services or work that you want, our office will provide.
So can you give us an idea of when work like this is done by your firm? Is this pretty much, does this touch all the bases of what usually is asked for in doing a job description analysis? Because I mean, we've always done these things in-house, and doing the administrator one is a lot more complex than a lot of the other positions that we have. So I want to make sure that we're covering all the bases that we need to cover when we do this.
Yes, you would be covering all the bases. Again, I think, if you decide to move forward with this, one of the initial conversations with Brandon is just going to be to scope out exactly what you want to do. And that would mean he has a discussion with you specifically about each of these different things and whether or not, this is something that you really want to delve into more or less. I mean, so again, there would need to be some conversation about, what exactly you want to do. I mean, some of these things, like I said, Brandon scoped out what is, I think, what is the sort of the main services that would be provided to do something like this. But it may not, again, that may vary a little bit based on exactly what you want to do. And, again, you haven't had any of those direct conversations with Brandon yet. So part of that is just going to be a conversation about, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what we want to accomplish. And then getting some feedback from him on that.
Kelly, you had some comments? Or maybe you didn't.
I was just moving around. I think for me, I've looked at the proposal, but Jay, you and I were going to get together, and we haven't done that, and I'd like to do it in the next 2 weeks, maybe before the next meeting. I'd kind of like to put this on the aside and have you and I get together and kind of walk through it. I have a colleague who has worked in HR for almost as many years as I've been on the earth. I have a best friend who's in HR that some of the things I think you and I could sit down and kind of, it's not that we have to rewrite a job description. I just kind of want to bring it up to the 2021 times, not the 1990 something times. So I kind of feel like before we move forward and spend a lot of money, well, spend money, it's not a lot in the scheme of things, but that you and I could sit down and kind of go through this, talk through some of my ideas, work together a little bit. We said we would do as a personnel committee and then come back to the council and see what their thoughts are and how they would like to proceed. I'm not opposed to using the firm or to having a conversation with Brandon. I just feel like before we spend any money, that you and I should sit down and do what we told the council we would first do.
Right. And then I definitely agree with you, Kelly. And I think that, connecting that with what Chris said, then that gives us some more of an idea of what we can ask. If we need help, we can ask Flaherty Hood what we specifically need. And they've given us a good summary of the services that they're able to provide, and then that can you know, I think it's going to be pretty similar to what they've put together, honestly. But yeah, I see what you're saying. I definitely agree with that. I'll contact you and we'll get together sometime soon so that we can take care of this.
Yeah, I'm not one to try and skimp on things. This is something obviously that I've been talking about for almost 3 years. And I want it done professionally and in the right way for all kinds of reasons. Because that's who I think we should be. That's what I think a city administrator deserves. So I just think that you and I should do our part first, and then we can come back with the council and say, hey, here's what we think, or here's what we might need, or here's another route that we might want to take. So, but I think this is good information to kind of tell us, here's what's available to us, and, you know, we can pick pieces or parts that we need.
Yeah. So, Chris, does that work for your firm, for us to, you know, put this on hold for a little bit, come back and, you know, and have, you know, have a conversation with Brandon and tell him what we came up with?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you know, you guys have worked with our firm for a long time, and the reality is that whatever services you want, we will provide to you, whether they deviate from Brandon's proposal or not. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you decide you want to do something less than what's in Brandon's proposal. We're here to provide the services that you want. And if that means you need to tweak the job description and it takes an hour of time, we can do that too. I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to. You wanted a proposal, so we gave you a proposal. But the reality is that, you know, and that's why I said, I mean, it really is just to sort of scope out what are the services you want, and then we'll bill you at our hourly rates like we always do. You know, so.
Well, thanks for that flexibility. I think that kind of answers our. We just lost Patrick. I think we still got the live stream, so I think we're still okay though. Oh, now he's back. Good. So does that kind of answer the question then about this item that Kelly? I sent you a message already. We'll get together and we'll. This is the beautiful thing about doing this stuff remotely. But we'll get together sometime soon, and we'll get this back on a future agenda, maybe the next agenda, with some more direction, and then we can either go with the proposal. We can ask for adjustments to the proposal. You know, move forward from there. So does that work for everybody? Okay, cool. Well, we're still making progress. I know we, you know, at least we're talking about it now, and we're getting things rolling. So, no other items on the agenda other than the council and staff reports. So we will move on to that. So, Anton, your report?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Kelly, your report?
North Shore Management Board met tonight. I'm not there. I'm also on Planning and Zoning with Michael, and we met last week. Obviously, tonight we had the resolution. We also talked about how we want to move forward, what things are in are we interested in talking about with all of the suggestions that have come forward as to how to help increase whether it's building, whether it's, you know, how are we going to increase our housing? So those were some of the things that we kind of talked about, picked a couple directions we want to go. And I don't know if Michael will want to talk more about it, but that's pretty much what I've got going on for the last couple weeks.
All right, great. Thank you much. Michael, your report?
Yeah, I'll just jump on with what Kelly was saying. Yeah, the commissioners kind of coalesced around the idea of wanting to really look at what our utilities look like and making sure that that's helpful to people when they're looking for, where they might locate another building or what have you, or where we might expand, where we haven't yet expanded. Yeah, so that was just more, what we can do to get more housing. So that's my report.
Great. Craig, your report?
I don't have anything at this time.
I was hoping you were going to, because I just put something in my mouth. Okay. All right. So I did actually have a couple of meetings. The Active Living Steering Committee met on Tuesday the 6th, and they're talking about planning for the summer, both activities and different events that they're working on. They're going to likely be joining forces with Bike MN, which is a nonprofit that helps organizations promote safe bicycling and bicycles training and things like that. There was a lot of conversation within the group about what does that mean for our group itself. And the Bike MN group is really super flexible. So we don't have to change our name. We don't have to change our mission. We don't have to do anything like that. Really, they're just acting as a 501c3 nonprofit for us so that we can get nonprofit donation money from anybody in our area that donates to Bike MN. So it seems like a pretty good partnership. The bike rodeo, is not going to look like it has in the past. Same conversation that we had with Lions Club. How can we do this and make it safe? So in the past, I've done the bike safety checks for kids at the bike rodeo, and I offered to continue to do that, but to do it broken up. So the rest of the Saturdays in April, I will have from 12 to 4. I'll have my bike stand set up outside my shop on 7th Avenue West, and kids can swing by with their bikes, and we'll give them a safety check, and there will also be helmets available for kids that do not have appropriate helmets or safe helmets. So that's one thing. And then we're going to talk about, when things clear up a little bit more, potentially doing the skills part of the rodeo before school starts in the fall, if things open up. So that was the Active Living Steering Committee that I remember. And then we also had, I had a Minnesota City's Climate Caucus meeting. There's a bunch of municipal leaders who are talking about ways that they can help push additional climate awareness in their communities and at the state level. So really, that was a lot of information gathering. There was nothing that was accomplished, and my participation in that is largely as an observer. The racial equity group met that night as well, and there's been a lot of conversation about a native land acknowledgement, a lot of conversation about what kind of resources can we make available in our communities to different groups, and it seems like it's pretty pertinent information right now, especially with the Walking the Old Road book being as popular as it has been, and other events that are happening on the state and national stages. So very important things to be aware of. Let me see. And that, I believe that's all that I have. Oh, the CEC, they are having a meeting at the beginning of May, and they wanted me to let you know that whatever we start talking about or going with for the community connection, they'll have that on their next agenda to discuss and see what they can do to help. So I do believe that is all of my report. So Mike, Kim, Patrick, anybody have anything to add?
Monday, there'll be a public meeting that MnDOT's hosting, informational meeting for Highway 61. So if folks are interested in that, feel free to attend. Before that, on Friday, they'll actually be holding their year 2 pre-construction meeting with all the players. So if we learn anything interesting, we'll try and throw it in the weekly report on Friday.
The link for that is on our website and social medias too, if anyone's looking for it.
Cool. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Mike. Anything else? Wonderful. We have completed our work for the evening. Thank you all for your time and your work. We are adjourned.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.